That's what TARP was about. But we borrowed as much as we could. The rest, we have to print. Ha ha ha. Printing money. Didn't I learn from the Weimar Republic that printing money is a bad thing? Because doesn't that lead to massive inflation? Well, wait a minute, Glenn. We don't have an inflation problem right now. You're right. You're right. We don't. Why? Come over here. Let me show you something. First of all, let me show you. This is a chart of our money supply. This is starts back at the turn of the century, and you see that our money supply was pretty good until the 1980s, 1990s, and then, whoa, Lehman Brothers, boom, spikes up. We're just printing money like crazy. Well, then why don't we have inflation? Two reasons. One, it usually takes about 2 years before inflation kicks up. When you do that, when inflation kicks up, it takes about 2 years to kick into the system. But where is the money? Because remember, inflation is too many dollars chasing too few goods. There's too many dollars. All right, where is it? Can you show me the next chart, please? This is our monetary base. This is our big printing. This is excess reserves. This is the bank. Whoa, look. The banks, have you ever heard anybody saying, the banks aren't loaning the money? That's a good thing. The banks are holding the money, because we ain't through this yet. They're holding the money. When the banks start to loan this money, that's what bankers call velocity. It's taking this money and pushing it out, velocity. That's what's missing right now. There is zero velocity on these dollars, so they're sitting there. Now, let me give you some perspective. Back in the 1970s under Jimmy Carter, remember, we printed money, we had inflation, we added too much money. We added a whopping 13% more money to our money supply. We printed 13% for 2 years. Do you remember how bad things were? We started down a socialist utopia with Jimmy Carter. Oh, we can have everything. And to stop it, what did we have to do? Well, the Fed chairman, Paul Volcker, came in, and in an effort to suck all the money back in, back to the Fed and out of the system, we had to raise interest rates. Remember, the banks have all of this money. This is why interest rates go up. Because once there's velocity and this goes out into the system, it's inflation. So they have to do something to get this money back down here so the Fed can take it out and destroy it. How do they do that? They charge you more to borrow money. You go in and borrow $100 at 20% interest, you're going to pay them $20 extra. And those $20 extra that you give to the bank actually go to the Federal Reserve where they destroy it. That's sucking the money back in. Well, after printing 13% more money for 2 years in the 1970s, we had runaway inflation of 12%. That's a lot here in the United States. So Volcker had to raise the interest rate to pull that 13% back. Do you remember what he raised that interest rate up to? He raised that interest rate up to 20%. Now let me ask you this, America. 20%. 20% interest rate. That was to bring in 13% increased money supply. Do you have any idea how much we've increased the money supply? $120%. Let me ask you this. In the last year or so, 120%. How high will our interest rate have to be to pull all of this money back down here? How do you do that without completely shutting down the entire economy? Can you afford a house with a 30-year interest of 35 or 40%? How about a car payment with 25, 30% interest? Can you do it? How many business loans will be taken out with 25% interest rates? In a fragile economy, you can't do it. 40%? 30%? I don't know an economist that will actually give you a number, because it's crazy town. But I will tell you this, it'll be over 20%. So how do you do it? Because everything will stop. How do you keep an economy based on buying, not building, on buying? You can't. You got to borrow money. Well, what if people won't lend you money? This is the real reason that Chris Dodd wanted to cap credit card interest rates today. They must have your credit cards working. They must have you spending. So what do? How do you get out of this system? Because you're going to have inflation. How do you do it? How? Well, to pay off the $105 trillion government debt and to take care of this whole mess and clean it up, here's what I think they're doing. Look at the debt clock once again. They're only saying almost $12 trillion at the top, but the whole number is about $343,000 per citizen. There's no way to pay that off. So, conjecture on my part, how about we just print enough money to pay off the debt over time? Sure, I mean, it'll be worthless, but we'll be able to honor our agreement. We'll be able to give the Chinese their money back and the rest of our debtors. That way, the people that we owed get their money. And if we sold some stuff to them, well, they can come and take those assets. But then what's left? Because, see, there's got to be somebody who has thought this through. How do you restart the country? You got to have something left. You have to have something to back the currency. Gold. Gold would be a good one, huh? There are $200 trillion in investable assets in the world. There are only $800 billion in gold. That's why we went off the gold system in the first place. We need more money. There's not enough gold. Well, you can't go back to the gold standard for very long, and you need something to buy stuff with. You can't barter forever. What are you going to do? Well, if you have to have money, you got to base it on something. So let's go back in history and look at the people and what they taught us last century. When there's out of control money supply problems, who do you turn to? Well, the people who did it last time. The Weimar Republic in Germany. What did they do? How did they get their economy back on their feet? Well, after their currency had become so worthless that they had printed 2 trillion mark banknotes, their economy collapsed. They dumped the mark. They got rid of it. They just printed it up, paid off their debts, and then they switched to the Rentenmark. Now, what did they back it up with? Not enough gold. Look here. Answer is right here. The answer is right here. They can back it with real estate. Land. That's what they did in Germany. And there's certainly enough land and resources in America that we could back our currency with. I mean, the government, though, would have to own all of the land. Oh my gosh, I just thought of something. Between Fannie and Freddie, the government already owns half of all of the U.S. mortgages, and they're about to buy more. And if you couple that with the federal land and the grab for parks that they're doing now, and, oh, did you hear the polar bears are too crowded and endangered, so they just gave, what was it, 200 square miles there? That's great. Oh, and all the oil that we're currently not drilling for, and the coal that we're not mining. Gosh, if you took all of that, I bet you could base a new currency off of that. Oh, and I bet China could come and help, because you probably wouldn't be happy with a system like that, taking all of the land, because that's one of our real rights that we had in our Constitution. Look, America, I'm hoping that I'm wrong about this. But I can't figure out anything else. I've never seen anything else in history done. I mean, what happens? Who would the new regime responsible for this new system of currency, who would they have on their side? Who would the federal government, after they've destroyed our future and your children's future, who would they have on your side? Because you'll say, because I would, don't worry about it, we'll fix it together. I mean, just bob down the street, we'll barter for a while, we'll get back on our feet, and we'll fix it. Let the free market fix it. But haven't we already seen those in government don't believe in the free market? They don't even believe in you. You're too stupid. They say, let the government fix it. Let the world fix it. There's a better idea. Let the world fix it. They're already saying these things now. And when you watch Friday's show on global warming, you will see how they are laying the groundwork for this. Don't fool yourself. Read American history. Read any history. Both the American Revolution and the Civil War, we needed allies. We needed people who would fight and supply money. Our government is making those allies. Russia, China, Venezuela. But don't you think China would be willing to come over here and protect this government, help this government out from its own radical people who just won't sit down and recognize the new reality? Under these circumstances, for a piece of our oil, coal, mineral reserves, land, to be a part of one big happy global family, you bet they will. So it boils down to this. What if the dollar collapses in the next 3, 5, 8 years? Is there anybody thinking of a plan? Because I'd like to hear another plan. This is the only one I can come up with. Historically speaking, it's the only one I can find too. Is there anybody making a plan? And does it matter?